Good morning to everyone this morning. Well, here we are. This is Joshua. It is Tuesday. It is a little bit after 9. It's 9:01 by my clock. And I have my hat on, even though it's creating a shadow across my face. Why is that, you might ask? Well, I'll let you see. If only the people who show up early get to see this. Everyone else who jumps on later, oh, I guess the people who watch it later in the day get to see it too. But oh yeah. I can tame it. I can with enough product and time, and I'm just not a product and time kind of guy. So here we are. I know that our state is opened up for hair cutting. I think the time is nigh. I think it's time for me to go. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. All right, what are we doing today, dear friends, patrons, followers, and fans of That Door from Bronson Coffee Roasters and Dancing Goats Coffee Bars? Today, we're going to take a quick cupping tour of our Guatemala La Esperanza by Octavio Herrera. So this is a coffee that we've highlighted before, but I'm coming back around to some of these because we had this big push on a bunch of new crop coffees, which are amazing. Go back and check those out in our archives. But now we're coming back around to looking at some of these coffees we have, which are amazing single origins, and we don't really want to overshadow them, right? With our new coffees being released, we want to highlight them all. So we're coming back around to some of our single origins, which we're continuing to move now, and also, and I might just give a little hint here, some of these, specifically Guatemalans, which might be coming close to an end because we have other coffees coming along from Guatemala. So just a little hint there. I'm not going to say anything too specific, but if you love Guatemalans and you love experiencing the differences that can occur across the range of Guatemalan coffees, then take a look at this Guatemala La Esperanza. So today we are going to be doing a cupping, right? And as you remember, cupping involves several samples of the same coffee in equal proportions being tasted in a very specific way. So what does that mean? So when we are cupping coffee, what we are attempting to do is to get samples of a large batch of coffee, right? We're sent hundreds and hundreds of pounds of coffee. And we want to make sure that that harvest, which is so painstakingly done by hand in origin, and then sorted in origin, cleaned, cleared, processed in origin, that coffee is, all of those seeds that make up those pounds and pounds of coffee are going to meet the standards, because we know that one bad coffee seed that roasts funny because it has a defect in it can throw off your bag of coffee, your cup of coffee. So as you've probably have noted over time, we keep coming back to these ideas of consistency. And so this is a way that we check for consistency with coffee. And it's done at several stages. We've discussed it before that they do it in origin, right? Our partners who are growing the coffee and processing coffee, they cup their coffee in this way, always attempting to get its quality clear and to get really kind of a mathematical hold, a statistical hold on the consistency of the coffee, which is what we're trying to do. And that's why we have the 3 separate containers in this case. You can have more, but the idea is that we're going to scoop coffee randomly out of the coffee that we're working with. And if one bad seed ends up in this cup, but these 2 are fine, okay, that raises a question. We're able to then expand the number of cups we're using, right? To see, okay, let's see if we catch a bad seed again. It could be there really was just one bad seed in hundreds of pounds. When you grasp just how broad and huge the agricultural processes behind coffee harvesting, growing and harvesting are, even with all of the controls that our partners put in place, yes, we can have an issue come through with one of those seeds, but we're always trying to narrow it down. So if one showed up in one of these cups, then we would have a question, and we'd need to do more cupping across a broader samples of the coffee. that being said, we're hoping that when we cup this multiple times, that we never experience that when we're cupping the coffee. It also is a way, not just for that issue of quality and assurance for its grade as a specialty coffee, we're also seeking to narrow down and put some verbiage behind the taste qualifications, the taste qualities, the aromatic qualities. So you'll know that as we cup coffee, aromatics play just as big a part. We're trying to describe the coffee, first to ourselves and then to you, our customers. So let's go ahead and start the process. So the first thing we're going to do when we cup this coffee is we're going to do what's called a dry sniff. So I have the coffee measured out here, and I'll actually go ahead and pick up these containers, give it a little shake, and just experience the aromatic of the coffee when it's dry. Yeah, very nice. It's lovely. Now, you know, we can't experience this together right now, so you know, that's sad for me. We do love having these experiences with all of you when we're able to have you into like our roastery, right? So we're trying to replicate this as best we can. So the aromas I got out of that were a little bit of a dark cocoa, and then there is like it's similar, like a molasses or brown, maybe more like brown sugar quality to it. So the next thing we do with the coffee is we're going to go ahead and put water under the coffee for approximately 4 minutes, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do that now and start my timer, and I'm going to pour it all the way up to the top. And it's, as you can see, it's kind of spinning a little bit there, kind of disturbs the coffee a little bit, gets it moving around, gets those grounds well saturated. Some of them sink down, come back up to the top. You can see the coffee is degassing a little bit, right? Those bubbles on top. It's exchanging the gas still locked into those grounds with water as we begin saturating the coffee. So we're going to go ahead and let that go through this process right here. Now we can also, at this point, if we want, come through, spin our hats around, and we can do what's like a little wet sniff, right? You'll see me now move down into the camera here. Again, remembering that these aromatics play such an important part in our coffee. Now the next thing I'm going to do, while my hat's still spun around, is I'm going to want to get down close to the coffee again, because you see there's like a crust that's formed along the top, and we're going to crack that crust with our handy dandy cupping spoon here. And in that process, we're doing it for a couple of reasons. We're going to crack the crust, which helps some of those grounds sink to the bottom. Majority of them sink to the bottom. It also does this big release of aromatics, and so that's going to be like the third point in which we are able to judge aromatics of the coffee. Remember, aroma plays a huge part in our sensual experience of the coffee, right? The aroma actually, like a fool with this term backwards, the aroma actually, you know, is what informs to a large degree what we're experiencing on our palate. So we're continually checking the aroma of this coffee. Now, after we crack the crust of all of them, one of the things we have to continue to do is we have to be rinsing our spoon, right? Because I'm going to move between those cups and putting the spoon from one into the other. And what we don't want to do is we're trying to gain consistency of what's happening in just that one little cup there. What we don't want to do is take, if there's something off in this cup here, we don't want to travel it over here, and we don't want to similarly bring it all the way over here, right? As we're moving our spoon. So we rinse our spoon in fresh water with each movement between the cups. Now, I should be clear, right, as we get close to our cracking time, that in this case, this is a coffee that obviously has already gone through all of its cupping processes. It's been obviously confirmed by Bob and the coffee team. I'm not really looking for defects in this coffee. Pretty confident that it's defect free. So when I talk about those things, just remember, I'm just talking about cupping as a general practice for the multiple reasons that it's used in the industry. One of those is judging the quality and any defect nature that might be in the coffee. So in this case, I don't have to be concerned about that because this is obviously a coffee that we we stand behind. But just as an example, and this for the same reason that we would rinse our spoon to ensure that any defect isn't carried through, we also want to always be in that practice, even when we're just cupping it like we are today, just to experience it from an aroma and flavor quality, right? So here we are at this point in the process. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this timer going. And so what happens is we crack it, bring the spoon back up, and then take the sniff, all right? Yeah. So another thing that we're going to do at this point is we can go ahead and skim off, again, rinsing between each one, skim off anything that remains on top of the coffee here. You can look at that, all those grounds just boom, right to the bottom. If you remember early on when we were doing these daily videos, we were doing one where we did cowboy coffee, and you know, like so many other full immersion processes, cowboy coffee, you just rely on steeping the grounds and letting them sink naturally. You can see that they will sink down. Now, of course, across time, some of that will continue to extract, right? Look at that, very few grounds coming up. Mostly just kind of getting this foam off the top here. Okay, now we traditionally will let the coffee sit for a little bit because we want to allow it to cool, right? And as you know, when you're drinking coffee, if your coffee's too hot, boo, that's no fun because it burns your mouth and you can't taste it very well. So we let the coffee sit for a little bit before we do the next part, which is the slurp. And we'll take this moment while we're letting it sit to take a look at the website here really quick, as we usually do, and talk a little bit about this coffee as you'll see it when you go to the website. So Guatemala Esperanza you'll find in our single origins, right? As always, I ask that you come down and check out the coffee report, which talks a little bit about Octavio Herrera, the location of the coffee. It's Huehuetenango, which is to the north of Guatemala, in the north of Guatemala. And then calls out specifically something which is interesting, the processing notes. So I'm going to show that, you know, it talks about the type of coffee which this is, which is classified as a dwarf Bourbon, right? It's a Caturra coffee, and so the dwarf aspect means that the foliage itself is fairly compact and grows very small in a sense compared to others, but it still has a good production, like a high production. But this coffee is a great example of a fully washed coffee that is sun-dried. Now, we have a picture here, and I'll have to ask Bob about the space of this, but when we talk about sun-dried, we don't want to confuse that with the aspect of a sun-dried coffee that is that has been sun-dried to remove the fruit. The washed aspect is what removes the fruit from the coffee and the mucilage. That is washed off in the washing process. The sun-dried aspect here that we're talking about is what happens to that seed in parchment after the mucilage has been washed off and cleaned away. That is the point at which it is fully sun-dried. And there are different ways to dry that. You know, when we talked about Costa Rica, we discussed a little bit that some of our coffees there go through sun drying. some of the distinct coffees we have from Costa Rica, and others go through mechanical drying. Processing centers use both methodologies. In this case, this is a fully sun-dried. And I won't speak for Bob, but I think some of us sometimes have preferences towards that aspect of the coffee. And what that does, of course, though, is does bring in issues with consistency, because that sun drying takes that much more care and attention from the folks in the processing center, right? To continually move that coffee to make sure that it's elevated, it has air moving around it, and then it's being moved and raked consistently so that it dries evenly, and there's no dampening or matting occurring within the heaping within the coffee, right? Because those will bring out elements that we do not want to be transferred to those seeds. So it just, in a certain sense, like that fully sun-dried just brings this additional level of care and quality to the coffee. In the end, though, of course, as always, what matters is what shows up in the cup, right? And so I'm going to do this a little bit early because I want to be respectful of your time. We usually would wait about 12 minutes or so, but we're not going to do that today. I'm going to actually go ahead and go right to cupping this coffee right now. So since we talk about quality in the cup, right? So what happens with the infamous slurp? You've always been told not to slurp your food, but in this case, we're going to go ahead and you are given the coffee cupper's permission to slurp. We're going to use our handy dandy cupping spoon. It goes into this lovely Guatemala La Esperanza. We take it up and you'll hear me slurp really loudly. The reason I'm doing that is to spread the coffee across the palate, to get it everywhere, and to create a full sensorial experience. It also, yet again, engages the olfactory sense. As we move that through with all that air coming in, it moves it back into those olfactory senses, which are in the back of our throat, right? So again, aroma, aroma, aroma. And then finally here, after we've slurped the coffee and get that final aroma hit from it, we also then begin to experience it on the palate. And we begin judging things like acidity, body, flavor. And between each one, I will, of course, rinse my spoon as well. So here we are. So silent. You know, I love our Guatemalas, and what I love about this one is the quality of those brown sugars, right? It's really a sweet cup of coffee. So if you like that, please, by all means, I would recommend that you hop online, try that out. Remember that you get a discount when you watch and learn here. It's watch and learn 10. You know that. I can put it up on the screen for you there, but you know it by now. Watch and learn 10 is the discount code that we're using, and I would recommend taking a look at this coffee, because it could be that maybe we have other Guatemalas coming along. So when we look at this coffee, when we taste it, when we have an experience of it, the qualities that we call out when we talk about the tasting notes are apple, raisin, and brown sugar. So what am I experiencing when I cup it? Absolutely the sweetness. I kind of got it in the aroma as well. There's a little bit of cocoa there, but I was also thinking like there's this quality of either it was like molasses or brown sugar. I could just like the aroma of it, but the way it sat was just that kind of deep sweetness, and then it comes through in the flavor as well. And then also the acidity, for sure. There is acidity here which balances out a nice body, and it's absolutely a malic acid. So not a citrus acid, malic, a softer acid, which is nice because I think that softness of that acid really is nice with the other components of the coffee, which are kind of those darker, sweeter qualities with raisin or brown sugar. Yeah. This is what I'll say about Guatemala. It's just my sense for them. I think that Guatemalas are great morning coffees. That's when I love to drink in Guatemala. And different people are different, right? Folks have different like proclivities when it comes to what they like for their morning cup of coffee. Some folks love a big, bold, like a Sumatra, Indonesia, or some big, heavy African coffee. I love a Central American. I love a Guatemalan coffee like this, sweet, and then with that soft acidity, that apple-like quality to the acidity. Yeah, I would almost, if I was at the cupping table, we might say there was bruised apple, right? Which we're not going to put on the package because that just sounds snotty, snooty, I should say, not snotty. Right, this is a little bit, but that's just, it's that sweetness of the apple, when you have an apple that has a little brown spot in it, and you have to tell your kids to eat it anyways, which I just did to my kid the other day, because that's really sweet, often, that bruised section of the apple. I don't know much about what happens when fruit gets bruised, but I assume it's a breakdown of those sugars and those compounds similar to what we experience with any form of oxidation. But whatever, I'll look that up on my own time, not on your time. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. What do we have coming up for the rest of this week? So I am going to be going to Tacoma tomorrow. And so I'm still working out some details. I'm going to talk to some of the friends that work on these videos and produce with, and we might actually try a remote show, much like we did last week when we visited La Fête and Mercer Island. Just because I think it would be cool for you all to see the space where we're going to be opening our next store, which is in Tacoma, Washington. I'm going to be meeting Krista there, and we're going to be talking with the market manager about the Point Ruston farmers market, which is opening soon, and that we're going to do a little pop-up at as we prepare to open a store there. So I thought you might like to see the space under construction. Always fun to take a look at a place before it's built out, and then of course you'll get to see a lot of it once we actually open it up. It will be our newest store. We're really excited about it here on this coast. So I'd love to show that with all of you maybe tomorrow, but that might mean that the show happens a little later in the day. I'll send out some notes tonight as I work out the details, but I think we'll do a live show from there tomorrow, so that you can be introduced to our new Tacoma location. And then on Thursday, I'm going to be focusing on our steeped coffee. We are entering into camping season. I had said last week when I did the intro to camping materials that we'd take a look at steeped on its own. And so I do want to do that. And it will be just a really quick reintroduction to it. It's been a while since we've talked about it. I want to make sure you all know about it, because you can, of course, get it online as you're preparing for your camping trips. So anyway, that's what we have going on from my side for the next couple days. I look forward to visiting you in your homes, or at your work, which is now in your home, as we continue turning our homes into cafes. Goodbye from Backdoor from Bronson for today. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Thanks for joining us today.